Ahjan Viradhammo, is that correct? Is a member of the Ottawa Buddhist Society. He was born in 1947 and moved to Toronto around the age of 4. Ahjan was introduced to Buddhism while living in India around 1969. He has traveled the world and has helped establish 2 monasteries in the UK. Ahjan will be speaking to us today about mindfulness and CF.
So, good afternoon. Thank you for welcoming into your family. It's really quite nice just listening to you all and getting a sense of your common predicament and your common support. It's not nice to see. Someone was asking me about myself, so a bit of a bio is always fun, because I have this strange clothing, so you're probably wondering how I got into this business and what I am. I'm a child of the 60s, so I used to have longer hair and did all kinds of naughty things. But I've always had a deep yearning for silence. Even as a child, I would sometimes just wake up into this really silent space and consciousness, which would go away, of course, and I'd have the usual childlike yearnings. But there was always this sense of there's something other in human consciousness, something deeply silent and beautiful. And so that was a kind of question in me, which was quite agonizing, because the conventional things that I took on, whether it was playing with toy guns or sex, drugs, and rock and roll, or whatever it was, those things didn't really answer the question. They didn't bring me to that deep silence of the heart. So I was a student in engineering, but it didn't work for me. Should have been in philosophy, I guess, or something. At U of T, I dropped out, and I just started to travel, and I started to meditate, and I started to have some glimpses of that silence, which I had known as a child, which was very inspiring. And then soon afterwards, I met an American who was a Buddhist monk, and he then introduced me to this particular teaching and a particular lifestyle of a Buddhist monk. If you'd have told me 6 months before that I'm going to be a Buddhist monk, I said, you're nuts. No way. I'm not a monk. And yet the lifestyle was very appealing because of its simplicity and its spiritual yearning. So mindfulness and CF, I don't have CF, so I can't speak to that. I've read a bit about it. It sounds like a really difficult discipline which you have to sustain, both physically, mentally, and emotionally. And I think we all suffer. I suffer fear, you suffer fear. I get ticked off, you get ticked off. So we call that non-identification. It's not like I don't experience that or feel that, is that I no longer become that. And that gives me a choice. Because I have some space now around this thing called irritation. I'm not that irritation, I'm bigger than it. Mindfulness is bigger than that. I've met it, I know it, I can make a choice. I can make a choice because I'm not caught up into it. If I'm caught by the irritation, in other words, I'm just thinking irritable thoughts about the manufacturer, about myself, or whatever, I can't make a choice. I'm driven by habit. And I become enslaved to habit, and I'm not free, and I get stressed out. It's a trivial example, but life is often trivial. Life is full of things like that. So now, okay, I feel irritation, but I'm mindful of the irritation. I see that irritation feels this way, then I can make a choice. I can choose to watch my breath. I can choose to mindfully collect the berries. I can choose to actually use the situation to calm my mind. We have a commonality there. Mindfulness is one of the central themes in Buddhism, but it does come in a larger context of living a good life. The word itself, really, the way I like to think about it, it's the awakened mind. The awakened mind, the mind which is present. So let's say I drop a package of blueberries on Mom's floor, which I did. The blueberries on a white tile floor, not nice. So there's the blueberries all over the floor. You could say, well, I wasn't mindful because I spilled the blueberries. Yeah, maybe. But in the second moment, when I noticed the blueberry on the floor, I was definitely there now. And mindfulness would be also knowing not just the blueberries are on the floor, but what's my mind doing about it? Am I irritated? Am I ticked off? Am I blaming the manufacturer for making such a rotten box? Am I into self-disparagement? Why did you do that again? Why did you drop that? Mindfulness is a capacity to know the whole picture, not just paying attention. Sometimes people think that mindfulness is paying attention. A robber can be paying attention, but doesn't really know his mind. So mindfulness has this capacity to contain or know what's going on, to be awake. And the word Buddha, the root of the word is awake. So mindfulness has that sense of being present, knowing the way things are, but it also has a sense of recollection. You can recollect, you can remember. I can remember things. And one of the things I can remember is maybe the feeling of my breath. Or I can recollect compassion. I can recollect anger. I can recollect fear. I can bring forth certain states of mind. Mindfulness in my tradition is usually conjoined with wisdom. We often talk about mindfulness and wisdom. And wisdom is the capacity to know cause and effect. So the blueberries are on the floor, right? And I had something to go to, right? Some appointment to go to. So blueberries on the floor is really not good. Can't really leave it there, because if his mom walks in, she'll squish them all over the floor. So the first impulse is to become irritated. Now mindfulness is a capacity to know irritation in this sense. Irritation feels this way. And it's different than being irritated. You see what I mean? Being irritated means, oh, you idiot Viradhammo, you did it again and you have to go to the meeting. That's not being mindful, that's being irritated. Whereas knowing irritation as a mood, as a bodily feeling, and not getting caught up in the narrative and storyline is being mindful of irritation. We call that non-identification. It's not like I don't experience that or feel that, is that I no longer become that. And that gives me a choice. Because I have some space now around this thing called irritation, I'm not that irritation, I'm bigger than it. Mindfulness is bigger than that. I've met it, I know it, I can make a choice. I can make a choice because I'm not caught up into it. If I'm caught by the irritation, in other words, I'm just thinking irritable thoughts about the manufacturer, about myself, or whatever, I can't make a choice. I'm driven by habit. And I become enslaved to habit, and I'm not free, and I get stressed out. It's a trivial example, but life is often trivial. Life is full of things like that. So now, okay, I feel irritation, but I'm mindful of the irritation. I see that irritation feels this way, then I can make a choice. I can choose to watch my breath. I can choose to mindfully collect the berries. I can choose to actually use the situation to calm my mind. If I'm not aware, if I'm not mindful, then I'm still making choices, but the choices are driven by negative habit, by all kinds of stuff. The choices I make with thought, with intention, with action, with speech, they have a consequence, right? So if I just clean up the blueberries in a state of frustration, then that means that a certain amount of frustration and stress is going to carry into the next 5 minutes, right? And if I'm not mindful of that stress and so on, I never say, this is the way it is now, I feel rotten, or I feel irritated, or I feel happy, I never really awaken to the moment, then each next moment is just driven by habit, and I'm like a leaf in the wind. One of the descriptions I like about this practice is the craft of the heart. I like the idea of craft. You know, if you've ever developed a musical instrument, knitting, cooking, carpentry, pottery, whatever, yoga, a craft requires skill, doesn't it? We as human beings can do skillful things. Huh? We can look at like a piece of weaving, and we can learn how to weave, and we can see how the weft is going in, how the edges are pushing in too much, and we can make a more skillful weft, and we can bang the weft down in a more skillful way, and we can get better at it. And it's the same with our minds, isn't it? Our minds are not just hardwired to be a certain way. You know, they are flexible.